Computer, yes. That's the same acronym as rest in peace. All right. Recording in process. Hey guys, looky what we got for you today here on Comic Spot as I sit in front of my Hershey bar closet. I get hungry for Hershey's. Anyway, it's all about the guest, not about me here on Comic Spot. So this is interview number 1100 and nobody cares. And today we have a return guest, but today he's coming on to promote a few things as well. So let me read you the intro he has for me this time. I adore him. I know him in person. He's a great guy. He has a show here in town. He'll talk about that too. Here's his braggy little intro. Paul Hallasy performs regularly in New York City and has performed at clubs and colleges across the United States and around the world. Wow. He has performed his one-man show, Take My Job, Please, Confessions of a Stand-Up Doorman at Dixon Place and the Pit Loft in New York City. He is also the author of a book called New York Trilogy and a blog called The Gay Curmudgeon. His screenplay, All the Bands in the 80s, will be coming soon to an Indiegogo site near you. And he's also going to talk about an upcoming trip to LA to attend the Cruel World Festival, and which his screenplay that he's going to talk about is about. So let's welcome him right now, right here on the Comic Spot interviews, Paul Hallasy. Woo!
Yay!
Hey,
Yay!
Paul, we did it. We got on. That's the intros. Let's
Oh,
talk. You're in
okay.
a room and your hair looks perfect. How do I get
Yeah.
that hairdo? I want that hairdo.
Well, it can be yours. You just need some male pattern baldness.
Britney Spears rocked it once.
Oh yeah, well, she paid for it. I get it naturally.
It's awesome. Well, tell people where you live and what your day is like when you're not out doing comedy. Like, are you a bird watcher? Do you cuss at your neighbor's kids? What is Paul Halsey like?
Well, right now I'm unemployed,
I
which is
hate.
why I have time to do this interview. But yeah, what is my normal day like? Well, let's see. I just came from the gym. I know that's shocking. What else can I tell you? Yeah, I am preparing for a trip to my annual trip to Los Angeles now to attend the Cruel World Festival, which is an 80s music festival, which I wrote about in my screenplay, which I am trying to get produced. Um, haven't had any luck with that, but I did film a trailer on my iPhone, which you can watch on my YouTube page. So yeah, that's as far as I've gotten with it so far. But
And your
yeah,
YouTube page is Paul Hallisy?
yeah, it's actually I think it's Paul Hallisy, the number one. But yeah, just Google my name and YouTube, and you'll find it.
Super. Well, let's talk about everything that you're up to these days. You have a show called Pangea. It's coming up, not right away, but talk about that.
Well, I have been producing a monthly stand-up comedy show called Eat, Drink, Laugh at a restaurant slash cabaret called Pangea in the East Village. I've been doing it for actually just celebrated our 3-year anniversary last month. And yeah, and our next show is going to be uh, May 10th. And I hear that a certain comedian named Linda Marcus Smith is on it.
Yay. I saw the video clip of you and Christy Miller singing like Cher.
Yes. That was great. That was really, I think that is perhaps one of the best highlights of my comedy career thus far. I was really, I feel like I was really lucky to have her on my show because I know she's open for Andrew Dice Clay, and she's what I would call a real comic, as opposed to what I do. And yeah, and it was great. And it was it was a real accomplishment for her as well to get me to be spontaneous because I am a control freak. So we had this whole back and forth before the show about how we were going to do it, and she was like, "Oh, just go with the flow," and it worked out great, and that's why it was such a great moment that I wouldn't even want to try to recreate it because it just like it's one of those magic moments where everything just sort of like comes together and you kind of like don't want to touch it. So I'm just going to leave it there for posterity.
The only thing I thought that could make the video better would be if Cher popped up behind the both of you and slapped you in the face.
We tried to get her, but I guess she was busy or something. But yeah, the invitation is still out there, Cher. If you're watching this, you're welcome to stop by my show anytime.
That was so. I'm surprised that has the clip gotten thousands of hits.
Not thousands, but I mean, I did get kind of a head start on Facebook, so I think maybe that siphoned away a lot of the views. But you know, it's there.
Well,
It's
I love your Pangea show, whether I'm in the audience laughing my tail off or on stage. It's a great little venue, and because everybody's packed in like sardines, it makes the comedy just explode.
Yeah, it's really a great room for comedy. I'm almost afraid to say that out loud because, sa- not to pat myself on the back, but since I started doing my show there, other people have started producing their own shows, both at Pangea and elsewhere. But I feel like I want to say it's the best kept secret, but it's not so secret anymore. But it's a great venue for comedy, and I don't know if they ever even did comedy before I started doing my show there because it's mainly a cabaret venue, so it's more like well, how would I define cabaret? It's usually like music and things like that.
Yes, I love it. I love that show so much. The venue is really cool. I would say it's like 1970s decor in the
I
lobby
get a
area.
real 80s vibe from it, and
80s.
I don't know if that's just me, but I think that's when they opened, and it does have kind of an 80s vibe and a lot of people there that I know from the 80s. So, I'm dating myself, but
Yeah, maybe it is the 80s because it's 70s would have been clunkier furniture.
yeah, that would have been more like a hippie aesthetic, but
Yeah.
which again, callback, that's also kind of what my screenplay is about, which is, yeah, it's called All the Bands in the 80s. And as I said, it's about this 80s music festival. So I have a particular fondness for that era, you might say.
Well, tell me about your screenplay. I want to hear about all the bands in the 80s.
Well, I feel like history is repeating itself. So the reason I wrote it is because, so what happened was I had bought tickets to see this concert. Actually, I think I bought the tickets after I got laid off, but I switched it around in the screenplay because that seemed really irresponsible.
I thought
Oh,
you were going to say after you got laid.
oh, well, that too. Um, yeah, and so it's basically all the things I had to go through in order to get to this concert. So what happened was, not only did I lose my job, but then I got sick as a result of all that stress, and I was in the hospital, and I had one of my Pangea shows, and I actually had to get Jeff Greenberg to host it because I got laryngitis and I couldn't even talk. So it's kind of like everything I had to go through to get to this show, and then uh, so I finally get to the show, but then when I get back to New York, I'm still unemployed. I still have to find a job. So part of, I guess, well, there's a couple of things going on. Um, Part of it is like, New York versus Los Angeles. And I think the bigger theme is, I mean, it's a comedy, but I say that it's really about mortality, which might sound weird. But my tagline, like when I've been pitching it to producers, my pitch is how far would you go to see a band before they die? Which is like a real thing because a lot of these bands from the 80s, uh, a lot of them have died already or in the process of dying. So that it's like an added sense of urgency to see them. And I mean, I did actually see a lot of them during the 80s when they were popular, but um, so my joke in the screenplay is that my goal is to see every band that came out in the 80s before they die. So, you know.
Yes, I love that. Who were some of your favorite bands, by the way, Paul?
Gosh, well, yeah, like I said, I kind of specialize in 80s bands and also like particularly 80s bands from England. So like, anything new wave or whatever you want to call it. Gosh, I wouldn't even know where to begin, but just to name some of them, like, Morrissey, The Smiths, Blondie. I'm thinking of some of the bands who performed at this festival. Like last year, I saw Duran Duran. This year, they're going to have New Order. Yeah, so it's hard to just name one. There's like lots of them.
Yes, absolutely. Well, okay, so remind me now that we know about your screenplay and your upcoming trip and your show at Pangea. Remind people that may or may those that saw your show long ago here, remind people where you grew up, what your childhood and early adulthood and getting into comedy was about, because I want them to get that snapshot of you, who you are.
Oh, okay. Well, there's actually a long bio on my website, but so I'm from Long Island, and I actually did a lot of theater growing up. I worked with a group called the Arena Players and Edie Falco. I did a children's theater with Edie Falco. And then I went to Hofstra University and I did a show with Phil Rosenthal, who created Everybody Loves Raymond, and Nancy Cassaro, who created Tony and Tina's Wedding, and Tom McGowan, who was a recurring role on Frasier. So I always say that everybody in that show became famous except for me. Um, yeah, and then I transferred to NYU, and yeah, I like to say that I burned through every creative career before I got to comedy because, like, I wrote a book, and I sort of tried to do some acting, but not, haven't really done any acting since I was in college. I was doing shows as a singer for a while. And then I thought, well, some people think I'm funny. Why don't I try to do something with that? So that's what I did.
Now, haven't you been doing stand up for like 20 some years?
Yes, you think I'd be further along by now, but I have to
Oh,
say, so for the first, like, I took a class with this man named Tommy Koenig, which was really uh, more like an open mic with a constructive criticism. Because I don't know if you can really teach comedy, but so I took his class for like 15 years, and I mainly did his class show. So like for the first 15 years, I did stand-up comedy. I basically only did one show a month. I basically just did his shows. I didn't even do open mics. So it was only towards the end. Um, well, he eventually moved to Florida, but it's only towards the end of his class when I started doing open mics, and then actually. Actually, what happened was Kathy Borick, who I think you know, and is also on my show next month. She booked me well, she was producing shows at a place called Coney Island Baby in the East Village, and she just booked me on her show without even asking. So she kind of got me back into comedy after Tommy moved to Florida. And then actually, she's responsible for getting me back into comedy twice because then, like when I got sick, I had stopped doing comedy for a while, and she was producing a show at Pangea, so she booked me there, and then I had actually approached Pangea, I think sometime like I want to say towards the end of the COVID pandemic. approached them about doing an open mic there. And the reason I started producing my show there initially was the first two shows I did there were
Mhm.
actually a benefit for Ukraine. So yeah, and then I just turned it into what I call a quote unquote normal show. But that's how it started. I just felt like I needed to do something, and it just so happens that the East Village is a sort of a Ukrainian neighborhood. Like there's a lot of Ukrainian people living there and Ukrainian restaurants. I mean, not as much now as when I first moved to the city, but I knew that that was also true. So, kind of all went together.
Yeah, I love going to shows that happen to be also, have a cause.
Right.
So how did those go?
Actually, I think at least one of those shows was sold out. Um, and I've done other benefits over the years. I did a number of benefits for Kamala Harris. I've done benefits for Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. There was a fire in the East Village that I did a benefit for the victims of the fire. Um, yeah, so I've done a number of benefits.
That's awesome. Well, what is so you have your upcoming Pangea show, trip to LA for your
Yes.
screenplay, and what else have you got cooking or like how's the book sales going? How is
That my book, that's something that I did a long time ago. Um, so the way that happened was, well, I wrote it obviously, but I also typeset it, laid it out, took it to a printer, distributed it myself to bookstores, and then when that printing ran out, I sent it to this print on demand company called iUniverse. So that's where it's available now.
awesome? Have you gone around to doormen to sell it?
No. But speaking of doorman, yeah, so yeah, and as you mentioned, I wrote a one-man show about the time that I was a doorman at a co-op in the West Village. So, you know, uh, as with my screenplay and my stand-up comedy, writing is a form of therapy for me. So that's kind of the impetus, the reason why I do these things, because it's not like I'm making any money at it. So, but it's it's therapy, and it's also with stand-up comedy, there's also a social aspect to it. So I feel like, these are my people. So, and it's nice to have that kind of a support network or support system.
And now's the perfect time to use comedy as therapy because they want us to unravel who we really are. So we
Right.
just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, well, that's another thing too, because like especially now with everything that's happening politically, that's been a source of a lot of my material lately because it's just been infuriating what's happening. And I've marched in a number of protests. I actually just marched in my fourth protest last weekend, which is also very therapeutic, I must say, in addition to the fact that I think it may actually help change things. But it's great, to see that you're not alone, like you're not crazy. This really is not normal what's happening. And so,
Yeah.
to be surrounded by thousands of people who feel the same way is really, you know, lifts your spirits.
Yes, absolutely. And, I'm so glad that people are not cowering to what's going on and showing that we band together and have a voice and not be afraid.
Well, I think that was Trump's intention and is still his intention, and I think that's kind of how people reacted initially. Because I mean, initially it was just overwhelming, and it's still kind of overwhelming because it was just like so much shit happening on a daily basis that you couldn't even keep up with it. But now, I mean, what's happening is that now that people are pushing back, he's had to reverse some of his decisions. I mean, he has like God knows how many court cases, most of which he's lost. So, it really does make a difference when people speak out.
So good to hear. So good to hear that we need hope. If anything, that we don't need a dictator or a president slash dictator or we need hope. Hope in
Right.
America.
Right.
That's people. The
Yep.
people make up, not some kind of hierarchy. But what else would you like people to know at this juncture? You get the floor to talk about
Wow.
anything you want to say.
Well, I am looking for a job, so if you have any job leads or information, feel free to look for me on LinkedIn. I have been applying for jobs, and I have to say, kind of apropos of nothing in a way, but also as per my job search, finding a job. Actually, I have a whole chunk of material about this as well, which I'll be doing on May 10th. Um,
Yes.
but the whole job hunting process is really fucked up right now. I feel like these job postings are total bullshit. Um, you know, either the job is like doesn't exist, it's totally a fake ad, and even if it's real or whether or not it's real, there's like hundreds of people applying for the same job. So it's basically like throwing your resume in the garbage. And so now, according to the experts, what you have to do is you basically have to find out about a job before it's advertised. It's kind of like trying to find an apartment in New York. Like by the time it's advertised, it's already too late. So, they talk about networking, which I've been trying to do, but it's like normally when I've been in this situation, it's kind of an emergency. So I don't have time to like go through the whole networking thing, which I have done in the past and it's gone absolutely nowhere. So yeah, it seems like lately the only thing I'm able to get are these temp jobs. I can't like break through these HR departments are just like impenetrable, and it's like, if you don't have a certain box check, you don't even, get an interview, let alone a job. So it's really um kind of ridiculous, and it's been a real source of frustration for me, as you might be able to
Yeah.
tell.
I know there's people out there that try to pass out resumes for other people, like Helene Witt and Danny
Right.
Livingston, and I, um, so would you do me a favor and send me your resume and I'll post it out there?
Sure.
Okay, because there's like different groups of people on Facebook that I'm a part of, and if they know anybody that
Yeah. Well, you know something? I have to say that lately, my comedy contacts have been more useful than my work contacts, which might sound strange, but it's true. So, like, just for example, like one of my last jobs came to me through an agency that was referred to me by a comedian. So, yeah, so that's, one more great thing about doing comedy is the networking.
yes, absolutely. So, what would you like to have people do to help support you other than sharing? If they could share I'll post your resume and your
Right.
LinkedIn link,
Yes.
one or the other, whichever you're comfortable
Well, they're
with.
basically the same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I guess, yeah, I think that should cover it.
Okay. And then, like, we got to get out and support you at Pangea. And how
Right.
can we support your screenplay?
Well, at some point, I would like to start an Indiegogo page. I mean, I wasn't just joking, but before I do that, um, it's kind of recommended that you form an LLC just to protect yourself legally because you're collecting all this money, and of course, it's supposed to go for your screenplay. So just so I don't get sued personally, and before I can even do that, I need to get my finances in order, which means I need to get a job. So it's kind of like um this uphill climb for me right now, but that's kind of the process, if you will.
Well, you guys, you heard it from the horse's mouth right here, not to call you a horse. So let's help let's help our friend Paul Hallasy get a job so he can get an Indiegogo and make an LLC and get this thing rolling. He's very accomplished, and we want to help him stay accomplished. Because
Keep Paul alive. Keep Paul alive.
when you're in New York City, come out and see him at Pangea and check out his page on Facebook or Instagram or his YouTube, Paul Hallasy One. And if you're a booker, agent, club owner around the United States, you heard it. He'll go anywhere, anywhere in the world. Book him. He's hella funny. And if you don't believe that, ask Christy Miller because she opened up for the biggest comedian on the planet. What was his name again?
Nice Clay.
Andrew Dice Clay, the Dice. So Christy Miller knows how funny he is. We got to help Paul Hallasy. This is the Paul Hallasy hour right here, folks.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you
Okay.
for coming on.
Your check is in the mail.
Bye. See you
Bye.
later. Thank you.